Hello, pen writers. Today, I'm glad to have as our guest Andrew Gray. Andrew is the author of 100 works of contemporary gay romantic fiction. After 27 years in corporate America, he has now settled down in central Pennsylvania with his husband, Dominic, and his laptop. An interesting menage. Andrew grew up in Western Michigan with a father who loved to tell stories and a mother who loved to read them. Since then, he has lived throughout the country and traveled throughout the world. He is a recipient of the Romance Writers of America Centennial Award and lives in beautiful, historic Carlisle, Pennsylvania. Glad to have you here, Andrew.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I have a whole lot of questions for Andrew, and he has a lot of interesting answers, and we could probably go on for hours and hours, but we won't do that. Let's start with the question writers get asked all the time. What was your inspiration to become a writer? Why did you become a writer?
For me, it was strictly accidental. My partner and I have a pool at our home. And for my father's 70th birthday, we had a big party to celebrate Dad turning 70. And everybody at the party, all our friends and all my parents' friends kept telling me how much I looked like my father, and I realized I did. Yes, I looked like my 70-year-old father. So I decided I was going to do something about it. I joined a gym. I started spending a lot of time doing cardio, decided I was going to lose weight and become healthier. Part of that means that you have to have something to do while you're on that dang treadmill. And so I started reading. I hadn't been reading a lot because I'd been working a lot up to that point, but I started reading again because I would have a half an hour, 45 minutes a day of quiet time, and I started to read. And since I had been buying books, the great Satan, aka Amazon, recommended to me a couple of books, and they were gay books. So I bought them, figuring I'd give them a try, and it turned out that they were gay romances. This is in 2006. These are very early, some of the very earliest gay romances that were being published. And I read them, really liked them because they were gay stories and they had a happy ending, which I grew up in the AIDS era, so all gay fiction at that point, everybody died. So I hadn't read anything like that in years. So I picked them up, I enjoyed them, and I bought more. It got to the point that the mailman was delivering books to my house 2 and 3 times a week, 3 and 4 at a time, because I was reading everything I could get my hands on. And in January of 2007, after reading, I don't know, must have been hundreds of these early gay romances, I decided to write one. I didn't tell anybody till I was halfway through the manuscript, not even my husband. He didn't know. He was working at home translating in the evening, and I had my computer downstairs and I was working away, and I didn't tell him, I didn't tell anybody till I was halfway through, and I realized that I could actually finish the book. I wrote the book. We wrote it in 2 months, then started a second one. Dominic read it and he helped me revise it, and we worked on the first book for about 3-4 months after that, and I sent it to a publisher who promptly rejected it. Okay, it's part of the game. But they were very nice, and I'm actually friends with the person who wrote my rejection letter. She's actually a very good friend of mine today. It was for a small press. She rejected, and now she and I are really, really good friends. She gave Andrew Gray his first rejection. She almost has a t-shirt for it. But she told me a place that she gave me a recommendation. I reworked the book according to the recommendation for the new place. I submitted it to them, and they took it. After that, I had written some more. My first experience was not a good one, and thank goodness that company is no longer around. They turned out that they were a predator. That's why they took the book. But the second one, I found my current publisher, a small publisher, who were just starting out at the time, and they took the next books, and from there, that's it. It just went from there. Um, right now, I have two, as of all the books I've written, I have two that are not published, that
That's
did not publish. And that's only because um, I've written the two books. They're spec books that I've given to my agent, and they are being shopped to the Big Five and all of the New York publishers right now. So
that's cool. Good.
yeah, it's
I
cool.
hope we hear some good news about that soon. Well,
I hope so. Although it's so difficult now with the whole COVID thing, nothing is happening anywhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
people are still buying books online.
hmm
Books are being bought online, but
Books are being bought online, but publishers have just really slowed to a trickle. No.
uh, uh, going to back to your whole origin story there and how you got started. Okay, Dominic helped you with that first book, but is there another person besides your husband or an organization that you feel really helped you when you were getting started?
Well, Dominic, of course, helped me a great deal when I was getting started. He works as an editor, so I would write the books, and then he would clean up my mess. The only reason I got published is because of him. Because if they'd have seen my raw manuscript, everyone would have said, "You've got to be kidding." But after that, I had my third book published in, I believe, March of 2009. And it was the same time that Dominic saw an ad in the local shopper for the Central Pennsylvania romance writers. And he saw this ad, cut it out, and said, "You should go check this out to see if it's something you would be interested in." And the rest is sort of history. I joined after the first meeting, and everyone in that group, all of the ladies, and I call them the ladies because while I've been in the group now for over a decade, 11 years. During that time, for the entire 11 years, most of it, all but I think for 1 year, I've been the only guy in the group. So,
and they appreciate having you there and your insights. Every once in a while, you need a male insight into that group. And
well, it's very interesting because yes, there are some very interesting things that I've seen. As far as when you're writing romance from a guy's perspective. And in fact, at conferences, I have done a number of panels that are entitled "From the Guy's Perspective," where author conferences and things, people come in and they can ask questions, and they can ask any questions they want. At a conference in Florida, I did with another author, I did an Ask the Gay Boys panel where you could ask us anything you want. Needless to say, the panel started at 10 o'clock at night because it was a really adult panel. And
I bet it was well attended.
The room was jammed.
Yes.
I did that also at YoeyCon. When I first started, I went to a YoeyCon in California, and I did that panel at YoeyCon, and the room was standing room only. Every chair was full. Everyone was sitting around the side because every writer in the place wanted, because it was romance writers are women. romance writers are generally women. I love it. But they also really want the men's perspective.
Yeah.
Because it's different. As a quick example for you, when you're writing a sex scene, and if you're writing from the male perspective, once you've got things going, his mind thinks, okay, it's sex, we're going to have a good time. Okay? The ramifications and the thinking doesn't come till after. Okay? Oops, I made a mistake, but that isn't even considered till after. Never during, never before. Because up until that point, there's only one thing that counts, and that is, let's go. Okay?
Well, it's
very different.
It is different, and it's
because women tend to be before
realistic.
and even during It's like, am I doing the right thing? The thinking and the emotion kicks in. For men, the emotion doesn't kick in till afterwards. And then it's all about what did I do, or what are the ramifications of what I did? But only afterwards, generally.
Well, I would attend that panel. But moving on with some questions here about your career, and I think a lot of writers, they want to ask this of writers like you who are successful. When did you know you could quit your day job and be a full-time writer?
It would have been at a conference in 2013, actually. I was at the evil day job was taking up more and more and more of my time, and more importantly, more and more and more of my brain power. The Muse, because I had been writing in the evenings and so on and spare time for years up to that point, but the Muse was dying. It was being strangled. There was nothing left. And by that point, the royalty and the income stream was significantly more than the full-time evil day job.
Everybody's dream to have that happen.
So I went to a conference. I talked to some friends. I talked to them about the situation, some people that I had known for a long time and valued their opinion. And then I talked to some friends at the publishing house in publishing. And from there, it then came home, talked to my husband. And he said, okay, if that's what you want to do, go for it.
It's great.
I guess I gave notice at my job on Halloween. They thought I was kidding.
No. Well, good for you. I always love to see a writer who can live that dream and know that it can happen for people. Now, you did your first books were with small press, a lot of your books with small press, and now your agent is shopping a book to the big publishers. A lot of writers, myself included, we start out with small presses. What do you see as the pros and cons of being with a small press compared to maybe being with one of the big five?
Well, when I started, there were for what I was writing, there were only small presses. I mean, there wasn't even an option of going anywhere else, because the big companies, the big five, if you will, they weren't interested. A few of them had dipped their toes in at some point. It didn't work out, so they weren't interested. I went with a small press because it was available, but some of the advantages with a small press, you have a lot more control. As of right now, I've published novellas and novels, about 150 works at this point.
Wow.
Okay, that also means that I've had the say and the final approval for 150 covers.
That's
okay. I don't get. That's what I mean. You get more control. I've worked with the cover artist for every single one of my covers. We come to an agreement, and then it goes to the publisher. There have been times when the publisher my publisher came back to me and saying, well, we're really not so sure about this. We would like this sort of cover for this book. And they came back with a very different cover. That's happened about 4 times. 2 of the times I've taken their cover, and both times the book was a success. Mm-hmm. 2 of the times I have rejected their cover, and I went with my cover, and those 2 books were the biggest successes I've ever had.
So, yeah. But how about some cons, though, of small press?
Cons. It's very difficult to break into the larger market, if you will. A small press tends to be more of a niche. They have their readership that goes along with the small press. You build your own readership, but it tends to stay within the genre. So since my publisher only publishes books, my books tend to stay within the genre. Whereas if you can get a larger press to pick up your story, you have a better chance of being one of those books that breaks out and catches the attention of the wider romance audience.
Right.
Okay, so there are advantages to both. I'm shopping, I've got 2 manuscripts that I'm shopping to the big presses. And my publisher, my current publisher, backs it 100%. She's is willing to do and has done everything that she can to help bring me to their attention, including providing in some cases, confidential information to them that they have agreed to keep confidential on my sales and that sort of thing.
Right.
Been very supportive, because if I get a book that does that, well, then those readers are going to go back for the other books.
Correct. It helps everybody.
So
Helps
it
the small
everybody,
press.
helps everybody. For me, it's the new type of hybrid author.
Yeah. Yes, could be. And yet with the small press, like you say, it's a niche. And I think a lot of speculative fiction the same way. For a long time, the big publishers want the vampires or the ghosts, the shape changers. And then when those things did so well with the small presses, then they started to jump on the bandwagon. And so I think there is a place where those small presses help bring to the attention of the greater market books that are very popular if someone puts them out there.
That's very true. That's very true. But as you know, with the big presses, there are drawbacks. One of them, big one, is control.
Right.
The cover isn't designed to be the cover for your book. The cover is designed to sell your book, or what they think will sell the book. So it's a marketing tool.
Right.
And while you have input into it, when push comes to shove, it's what they want.
Yes.
You can work with your editor and you can do all this, but when the book gets published, that's up to them.
That's correct.
Lots of things happen based upon what the big publisher wants. So you give up a great deal of control. Now, you get things in return, or you hopefully get things in return. One of them is their marketing, their distribution avenues, which a smaller press may not have. So it's always a trade-off. Also, with a big press, your book is going to have to be much more, quote unquote, mainstream.
Yeah.
If your book has characters that are much more niche, the big press isn't likely to take them. Because they're looking for in genre, every publisher right now is looking for the next red, white, and royal blue. It's what they're looking for.
Right.
Or they're looking for the next this, or the next this, or the gay version of Twilight, or the gay version of the Hunger Games, or whatever it is. They're looking for something that they can sell as many copies as possible. So they have the big press and the small press, while they have some common things because they both want to sell books. The smaller press is more likely to work with you in order to get to the finished product that you both are happy with. The larger publisher, they have the control.
Okay. Moving on to the question I really always want to ask, and I've probably asked you before. You write fast. You write faster than maybe anyone I know. Tell us your secret. And what's your typical writing day like? How do you write so many words? And how many words do you think you average? How do you do that?
Right now, actually, COVID-19 has had a big effect on my writing. I'm actually not writing as much as I usually do.
That was one of my questions.
But usually my standard writing day is I get up I get up with my husband. Now, my husband for years has gotten up at 6:15 in the morning. So I get to sleep until 6:30. Since Dominic got laid off because of COVID, our schedule has changed. But um, that's what I have done for years and years and years. I get up when he does, which means I go to bed when he does. So I'm up at 6:30. I'm at my computer and I clear email. I do all, the social media. I do my first social media posts. I respond to the immediate comments, and then I close that stuff down by 8 o'clock in the morning. And I generally, from 8 o'clock until I get done, I write my morning words, which is usually 1,000 to 1,500 words in the morning. Sit down, power through that first bit of words. Then once that's done, if there's still time, I get to read. Okay, I get to read, or I can watch television, or I can do something that's relaxing and is a reward. From about 11 to 1 o'clock, I do the running. I get lunch. I do my running. I'll go out, do whatever I need to do. Now with, like I said, it's different with this, but this was my routine for years. At 1 o'clock, I do a little bit more social media from about 11 to 1. And then at 1 o'clock, I turn the computer back on and I generally write another 1,000 words. The afternoons are harder because that's when the phone calls start. Family phone calls or my garden club. Sometimes I go to have garden club meetings and so on. So I'll generally get 500 to another 1,000 words in the afternoon. When Dominic came home from work, he's the cook in the family, not me. All I do is poison people, I promise. So while he's cooking dinner, I wrote another 500 words. After dinner, he and I would spend some time together, and then he would do his thing a little bit in the evening, and I would write my last 500 words, and then that would be it for the day. I'd shut everything down, and we would watch television or do something in the rest of the evening, and I was done. So I generally end the day with somewhere between 3,000 and 3,500, sometimes 4,000 words.
That's
a very typical
words.
day, 6 days a week. And on the 7th day, he rested.
That's a lot of words. Now, and I like how you have that kind of set routine where you know what time you're doing what, and I think that a lot of writers strive for that, but most of us are just, okay, I have a few minutes, I'm going to sit down and write. And if we set a routine, maybe we get more writing done. Now, that's I know COVID has changed things, but I know that in the past you travel a lot. Is most of your traveling for pleasure, or is it connected to your writing? And how many book events do you do in a normal year?
Well, at one point, I was doing a book event a month from January through October and even sometimes November. I had there were a lot of conferences, there were a lot of signings, bigger signing events that I would do. I was, at one point I was doing an event a month, and that meant that I was going to Europe once a year to do an event there. A lot of those events have dried up and they're gone. The reader-writer conferences, a lot of them, because of cost, because of a lot of various things, are gone now. But a lot of my travel pre-COVID was writing related. I generally, in fact, I still have gone to Europe at least once a year. For the last, I want to say at least decade, I've been to Europe at least once a year. I go to the book lovers conference, which is a big romance conference. There are a few other ones that I have done. There's EuroPrideCon is one that I've done. Gay-Rom Lit is another one that I do. That these are still around and still going. But a lot of the other things have dried up. And then there is some travel that I do once a year with my husband. We generally go on a cruise once a year. And yes, I even write on the cruise.
That was my next question. I thought you probably did. Uh, okay. When you have your books with your agent and stuff, but what is coming out? I know you usually have about a book a month released. Is that right? And what do you have coming out next?
Well, right now I have shifted to a book every other month, but now all of the books are released. If I have a book, as an example, I have a book coming out Tuesday. It's my Dirk Grayson pen name, so it's suspense. It's romantic
Mhm.
suspense. It's called Pray for Love, Prey for love.
Okay.
Okay. And the amazing and wonderful Karen Rose helped 18 months ago. She and I sat on her outside on her pool deck one evening in Florida, and she and I talked about the book, and she helped me plot the book.
Cool.
Yeah, it was uber cool because she's just an amazing, and I absolutely love Karen. She's absolutely amazing. But then in 3 months, that book will release in the trade paperback and ebook on Tuesday, and 3 months later, it will release in mass market paperback.
Wow. I
Okay,
still
so
love mass market paperbacks to read. They're so easy to hold.
they're so easy to hold, and they're great for the beach, and they're great to take all kinds of places.
Yes, they fit in a bag.
Right now, with my publisher, I'm publishing about a book every other month, and then in the book, but I still write those books in a month. And then the other month, I'm writing the other books that I'm hoping will take me to New York, and some other things that I just always wanted to do and never had the time for. So it gives me some time to expand the things that I want to do as a writer.
It's so amazing to hear with as many books as you write a year that you still have so many ideas yet to go. So many ideas that you just need time to put on the computer screen.
Well, yeah, the books, it seems to be a well that just keeps bubbling up. I was talking to Dominic the other night because I have this idea for a story. It's a Western cowboy story, and I don't know a great deal about it other than he's the child that's supposed to take over the ranch, except his family breeds horses, and horses hate him.
Oh. Okay, that's
I can see the opening scene in my mind, and he's a cowboy. He's grumbling as he walks away from the barn, rubbing his backside where a horse bit him yet again.
yet again. Sounds like a plan right there. Now, uh, you said you've been writing less during the COVID pandemic here. And I know, speaking to a lot of different writers, some people are writing more because they're at home more, but there are a lot of people who are writing less because they have to work at their computer all day at home and they're tired of looking at the screen. But also, there is an emotional element behind that too. And lots of writers sometimes have trouble putting the words on a page for one reason or another. But you write so much. You don't seem to suffer those blockages. Uh, do you? Have you suffered writer's blocks, or do you have a piece of advice for writers who feel like they just can't finish or go on?
There have been times when I've gotten to a point in a story and nothing comes, absolutely nothing. There's the old adage that when in doubt, kill someone. Thank you, Karen Rose. But yes, there have been times when I've blocked, and I have two ways that really help me. The first is to talk to someone about your story. Usually for me, it's other authors. I have some dear author sisters. These are people I've known for many, many years. And and we do this. Amy Lane is one of my absolute dear author sisters. She lives in Sacramento, California, and occasionally she'll call me or I'll call her, and we'll talk, and then and we'll talk for a while, and then we'll come down to, okay, I'm having trouble with a story, and the answer is, okay, tell me about it. And I'll tell her what it is, and get up, okay, lay all the background, you do all of this, we'll talk, and it will be a very lengthy conversation, and then we'll come to the point of, but I don't know where to go from here, and Amy will say, well, this, or you could, why don't you try this, or why don't you try this, and suddenly something will click. One of my really most popular books is called Fire and Water, and I could not come up with how to bring the story and make it work and bring it to a conclusion. I told my friend Mary about it. She looks at me and she says, duh, the answer's this. It's all there. Boom, just do this. And it was like, ding, ding, ding. Everything was there. The whole thing was there. All the background, all the leading up to it, everything was there. In my mind, I just hadn't put one and one together to come up with the answer. The other thing that I do when I'm blocked and nothing is coming is I just plow forward, plow through no matter what. I just keep forward. It's not as though you can't rewrite. It's not as though you can't go back and throw it away and rework that section. But I just continued working. And the next day it's like, or I go to bed and the next day I'll wake up, oh, there it is. I'll go back to fiction I wrote. If I change this and change this and change this, and suddenly the road lays out just beautifully. Yeah. So that's what I do. I plow through. When the going gets hard, I just write harder. I just dig in and plow right through.
That's kind of what I try to do too. Is the plow through method. That's what I'm going to call it from now on.
Yeah, it's
plow through, and like you said, you can go back and change it, and that happens to me too. Is I plow through, and then after I've done that, something clicks, and I realize, oh, if I add this, do this, that's going to work. But
yeah, it's one of the things that I've heard that people have told me for years, that when I sit in on other panels and other things and ask authors, it's a common answer is to try to plow through. With the COVID stuff, it's harder just because there's just an added level of stress and unknown that just makes it harder. It's harder to clear your mind. But there is one thing I have found, and that is that for me, even though there's extra stress and everything, I get behind the computer and I'm writing, and some of that extra stress flows away. Just because I can then deal with the writing and my characters and just put the rest of it aside for a while.
Well, and that's good advice. And you've given us a lot of good advice and a lot of insight. And I'm very happy that you agreed to do this. We've known each other for years, and I have been in awe of your writing success. And I hope we can see you again at a Pen Writers event, either online or in person, perhaps. We'll maybe talk to you about that. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off here?
I don't think so, other than I hope everyone has a great day. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you, Andrew. It's been such a pleasure to have you.